Well, we're in that week of trade when it's going to be holiday season for at least the West largely. And let's have a quick look at how last week progressed as well as how this fresh new week has started off for Asian markets. The Dow, or rather all US indices were lower on Friday, and the largest laggard there was the financial sector. Mind you, on Thursday, the Dow was supported by the financial sector. However, that reversed up on Friday with the Dow closing 1.5% lower in trade on Friday. And the biggest laggard, of course, as I mentioned, was the financials. The S&P 500 too was down over around 1% in trade, and it was down almost 2% through last week. The Nasdaq was absolutely flat though. Mind you, Thursday saw the Nasdaq fall by almost 2.5%. Friday, it was down just 7 basis points, absolutely flat for the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq was, of course, the biggest loser for the week. Despite that, it was down almost 3%, with investors rotating out of growth stocks and into stocks around consumer staples, which is the more defensive stocks, if I may call it. The Dow futures, even on this Monday morning, have fallen around 40 basis points ahead of course, what is going to be a shortened week due to the holiday season. Moving on to how Europe closed last week. European stocks closed lower, driven, of course, by Omicron as well as inflation worries. The French CAC was down over 1% in trade. The DAX was down around 2/3%, with the Stock 600 also down around 0.6% in trade on Friday. The FTSE gained, but very marginally, was up just above 10 basis points in trade. Moving on to how Asia was looking on Friday of last week and how it's opened up this Monday morning. Major indices in Japan, China, and India had lost 1% each on Friday, with the SGX Nifty losing over 300 points since Friday morning. Now looking at how things stand, the Nikkei, which was down over 1.5% on Friday, is now down a further 1.75% in early trade today morning. As I look at it, the Shanghai is down around 0.75%. The Hang Seng is also down around over 1% in trade. The SGX 200 is lower by 1/3%, and the Kospi is down 1.5% almost or thereabouts. The SGX Nifty also now below that 16,900 mark. In fact, down 80 basis points in early trade today. That doesn't look like good news for Indian indices at all to start trade off. When I look at the commodities, moving on, oil prices, which fell almost 3% on Friday, have continued their slide. It's below that $70 a barrel mark now, and that slide continues. It's at around $69 a barrel as we speak. Moving on to how gold is looking. Gold was just below that $1,800 an ounce mark to close last week. It's just above that $1,800 an ounce mark to start this week off. The dollar index, though, has gained sharply. It was at 96.67% at close on Friday, and it's around that mark even early in trade today morning. The US 10-year treasuries, which had fallen sharply on Friday to that 1.4% mark, is just below the 1.4% mark now. And Bitcoin is at the 47,000 mark in early trade today, 47,000 US dollar mark in early trade today. That's broadly the roundup of how global markets are shaping up, including commodities and crypto, of course, in early trade on this Monday morning.